Hi guys, welcome back to Flora Fun and Food. My name is Lauren and today we're in my plant room and I'm going to show you a couple of plants that you can easily propagate using just water. So let's go. First up is this angel wing begonia. This thing grows like crazy and it is probably one of the easiest plants that I've ever gotten to root in water and probably one of the quickest. So let me show you where to cut this so that it will grow roots and basically grow into a whole new plant. Now, before we cut our begonia, we need to make sure that our equipment is sterilized. So I have a pair of bonsai shears. You can use literally just a regular pair of scissors. It doesn't matter, but what does matter is that you clean them. So I also have isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel. Now, this isopropyl bottle stays in my plant room, so I know that it is only for plant use. So don't do what I'm about to do next if you want to continue using this for medical purposes. But what I like to do is just open my shears, stick them in, and make sure that they get coated with isopropyl, and then dry them off with a clean paper towel. Alternatively, if you don't want to just keep a plant bottle around, you can just dump some isopropyl onto your paper towel, and then take your paper towel and just wipe it down. Make sure you're getting the blades especially. The reason you want to do this is to prevent spreading any sort of plant disease. You don't want to cut one plant that might be diseased, then don't sterilize your equipment and then go to another plant that's healthy and cut it and possibly infect it with some sort of disease. So you want to make sure, just like with humans, you want to take care with any sort of equipment that is going to cut or break the skin, you know, the plant, because you don't want to pass along anything that might ruin your plant. So this angel wing begonia, if you look closely, has a stem that looks like it's, you know, cut into different segments, separated by kind of these lines. Now, where each one of these lines are, it kind of looks like the stem is kind of swollen at that spot. That's because this is a node. Each one of these lines is a node. The segment in between those is called the internode. And as you can see right here, this is where I have cut this begonia before. And also you can see one over there. I cut this begonia all the time because it grows so tall that I have to kind of keep it trimmed up for it to just keep bushing out. So once you cut it, it will branch off like this into a new stalk, basically. So if you cut it, you're not going to diminish its growth. It's going to grow a new offshoot and keep going. Now that we've sanitized our shears, I want to show you close up where I'm going to be cutting. So again, each one of these line segments is a node, and we are going to cut in between one of those and stick it in water, and it is literally that simple. So this is a nice top growth, which means there are no branches coming off of it. So I'm going to cut right here. You can kind of see there's, you know, the node there, and I'm going to cut right in the middle, and I just have a really pretty top cut now. And really, these larger leaves are going to die. It's just inevitable. So if you just want to take off, I know it hurts my heart every time, take off, you know, the two bottom leaves. Honestly, I would even take off this big one, and it looks really sad, but that's what we're left with. And I could have cut it, you know, down lower, but I like to keep a few nodes just in case, because roots will start growing out of these nodes. Everywhere there's a node has the potential for root growth. So I have one leaf already out, and it still has kind of the casing on it, and then another one on the way. This one may die, but that's okay. And we're just going to plop this in a vase of water. I do sometimes use rooting hormone on the base of this, but these I find propagate just fine without it. And then here is a cutting I took probably months ago because I'm just too lazy to repot it. But look, I had just little bitty leaves. It's grown new leaves. It's growing an entire new stalk. And look at this ball of roots here at the bottom. I don't even know if I can get this safely out of this jar here. Oh gosh. So as you can see, this has a ton of roots. I'm just gonna go ahead and plant this right in here, and I'm just gonna use my self-waterer to plant this in here. So I'm gonna just dig a little hole here, plop it right in, cover those roots up, and give it a nice watering, and that will start growing with the rest of the plant. It is that easy, guys. Next up, we have my Philodendron micans plant. Now, let me show you how long this thing has gotten. So it hangs in a south-facing window here, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. It is so long. It needs a haircut. Now, just like the begonia, this plant also has nodes, but these nodes look a little different and the intranodes are a lot longer. So anywhere you see leaves coming out is definitely a node, so you can kind of tell. So here you can kind of see that the stem is swollen and has kind of a notch in it. And it's the same as you keep going up and down the plant. Now, I have found that micans are kind of hard to propagate in water. They will, but they, one, take forever, if at all. So I've had some be super successful and I've had some just sit in water, never die, but also never grow roots. So any philodendron, this is a vining philodendron, but any type of philodendron you can propagate via node or stem cuttings. This one just seems to be finicky for some reason. So just like we did on our begonia, we are going to trim in the middle of an internode, or maybe kind of an inch or so above or below the actual node. So this girl needs a haircut. So we are gonna take all of this and cut it. So here we go. Please ignore my craft mess. I'm gonna give her a nice trim to where when it hangs, it's just barely below the window. So I'm gonna take each strand or each vine here and just cut kind of about an inch above a node. And you want to make sure you keep track of the cut end versus the growing end, because if you put the wrong end in water, it may not grow very well. So we'll keep these. Oh my gosh, okay. And please remember to sterilize in between each cutting. Okay, she is cut. Look at all of this that we just cut off of my micans. So all of these ends that we have now cut, we're gonna put that side down in water. And really, I should cut these into smaller segments, so you can just keep cutting in between those nodes as far as you want to go. And that way it's a little easier to manage while it's in a vase of water. But here are two that I've been growing for quite some time on my windowsill, again, because I'm too lazy to repot. So here's like a little teeny tiny one. Look at all those roots. They're so cute. So tons of roots. And this was just from a very small node cutting. Okay, so it's literally just, I think, 2 nodes I see right there. And it grew all of these crazy long roots just sitting in a glass of water on the windowsill. Now this is definitely big enough and long enough of roots to just go ahead and plant in the pot with the others, so I will do that after I stop filming. So for now, I just put it all back in the little bottle here. Here's another cutting I did probably quite a while ago. Again, just a very small segment, and this, where the first leaf is actually new growth. This didn't have any leaves when I put it in the water, and look at that! Look at all these roots it grew. I have not put fertilizer or anything in this. Really, it probably needs some because it's been in here for months, but it is growing just fine in water. It has some new leaves. It has some new growth. Now, this is definitely long enough of roots to plant in the pot. However, when I'm transitioning plants that I've rooted in water into a pot of dirt, there are a couple things that I like to do to make sure it's a little bit more successful. So what I like to do first is let this air dry for a while, sometimes even overnight, so that these water roots can kind of start acclimating to the drier air. Then when I put them in the pot, I like to keep the pot a little more watered than normal, just so that these can kind of transition a little bit easier. And it's not gonna hurt the regular plant as long as you just don't overwater it. So again, I'm gonna put this back in water for now, and I will replant these at another time when I feel like it. The good thing about water props is that you can keep them, like I do, for months on end. You shouldn't, but I do. So this is the lazy person way of keeping plant starts alive, is just keep them in water on your windowsill. All right, I got the roots crammed back in this tiny little bottle. And this reminded me, I have a little bit of green algae growing here on the bottom. That is pretty typical. If you're leaving a clear container in the sunlight with water, it's gonna grow algae. So just every day or two, and in my case, a week, because lazy, every so often, change out the water, rinse it out, shake it around. It's not gonna hurt anything. Get that algae out and get fresh water in, and it'll just help it be a little healthier. Next up is this Monstera Adansonii. Monsteras are another great one to propagate with this method because they have easily identifiable nodes and they root in water just fine. So this is a vining Monstera plant, and it does get fenestrations or holes in the leaves, so I love it. It has gotten a little unruly and out of hand, so it needs another trim. It's literally, you can't see everything, but it is kind of woven in between all these shelves here. It's out of control, and it's just from like 2 little starts in this pot here. So again, let me find an end here and I'll show you. Here's an end, here we go. Okay, so just like the other ones we've done, this is gonna have nodes. So there's a little tiny like bump. That is a potential new root growing right there. Each node has these little bumps. This is vining also, so it does like to kind of cling on to stuff. So that's kind of the start of what is going on there. So again, with some sterile scissors, just cut right below a node, I would say, for this one, about 1 inch. So kind of right here. And then you're gonna pull off the bottom leaf, stick this end in water, and watch the roots grow. Here are 2 that I started, again, a long time ago, but you can see this one has an insane amount of roots. Now, this one was a little more recent, and I just wanna show you. It doesn't have near as many roots. It does have a few new water roots coming in, but look, it is growing new leaves, even under the water, and here, right there, is the start of another leaf. So this one, I don't want the leaf to sit in water too long because it could potentially rot, but it's a good sign that leaves and roots are growing all together in the water. So we're gonna plunk this guy back in and keep him on the windowsill. My general rule for replanting or knowing when your propagations are ready to go into soil is when your roots are at least 2 inches long and your roots have roots. So for this one, we just have a few kind of main roots coming off. But in this monster, first of all, it's way past 2 inches. But this one, you can see that there are little root hairs right above my finger here. Root hairs growing off of the main roots. This has 3 main roots coming off of the node, but they are huge. So this one's definitely ready to be put back in the soil. Again, I would let this sit on the counter for a couple of hours, dry out, and then I would put it in the dirt, keep the dirt kind of moist, not soggy, but moist enough that the roots can kind of adjust and become hardened a little bit so that they're not so prone to root rot, which I'll do a video here soon about how to treat root rot because I definitely have a plant or 2 that have some root rot right now. All right, the final plant before my bonus plant that I'll show you here in a minute is this Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that is needing a little bit of a rehab here. It's, you know, I have not wrangled it in a while, and all of these stems need to be velcroed to my stake here. This is called a mini Monstera. It's technically not a Monstera, it's a Rhaphidophora. It's just a different species. But again, this has very visible nodes. So each little notch here is a node. And as you can see here, this is actually where I propagated it probably a month ago because it just needed a haircut, and it's already growing new growth. So just like all the other ones we talked about today, pick a node, chop it kind of in between those nodes, and stick it in water. And here are the stems I cut off the other day. This one had 1 leaf left, but I really didn't have a ton of leaves. And I haven't actually checked on this, so let's see if it's grown any. Oh my gosh, it has. It's definitely grown roots. You can see right here, that kind of white spot is where a new root is trying to poke out of the node. So see, it's right there where that notch is. These water roots here look really healthy and happy. This one technically hasn't grown any roots yet, but you can tell that it's starting. This one here, you can see, has a lot of like weird texture to it. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. That's just potential root growth right there. So this one looks really knobbly, but it's growing roots just fine. These may even turn into roots too. These 2 are still pretty smooth. This one I can see right here. Now, this end here is very squishy, which could potentially turn into root rot. So with my sanitized shears here, I'm going to cut right below that node where all the kind of mushy yuckiness was. Notice that there are no roots coming out of the bottom node, but I don't want to cut that node off, and I just cut it right where, you know, probably 1/4 of an inch above where the rot had started, and we'll keep these healthy roots in water until the roots grow roots. This one also has a bit of squishy kind of brown at the end, so I'm going to go see where the green, it's hard to see, I'm sorry. See where the brown stops and the green starts? That's where I'm going to cut, just kind of on, you know, the side of the green. Cut like that. And then you really should set your cuttings out in the air for an hour or so and let this kind of callus over, and it helps prevent root rot. I'm too lazy to do that, so I stick them right in water, which is why sometimes I get a little bit of rot on these. But if you want to be on the safer side, leave these out on the counter for about an hour. Let this end that you've cut kind of heal over, callus up, and dry out. Then you can plop it in water and roots will start growing from your nodes. The final plant I'm going to leave you with today is one that I don't have a mother plant for, so a full-fledged plant. It's actually rosemary. So if you see here, my rosemary is actually growing roots. This was rosemary that I bought for a recipe, and you know those like clear plastic containers you get at the grocery store? They have, you know, fresh cut herbs. I did not need this much rosemary, so I stuck the woody little sprigs in this vase of water in a sunny window, and it is now growing tons of roots. And once it's rooted out enough, and you can kind of see how the roots have little baby hair roots, I could probably stick this in dirt now, but I'm gonna let it get a little bit bigger. And then I'm gonna plant this out in the garden this summer, because what an easy way to get a rosemary plant rather than buying one, just using what's left over if you bought some for a recipe. So if you have any other plants that you would like me to show you how to propagate, let me know in the comments down below. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and head over to my channel to subscribe for more content like this. And I hope to see you guys again very soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.